Hi, my name's Fred. I drink beer. Welcome to Beers from the Basement, where I drag up dusty old bottles from my basement and we enjoy them together. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Beers from the Basement. Today's show I'm calling Head to Head because I have a couple of beers from two different breweries from the same year, and we'll kind of compare and contrast them. So I'm going to start off with an old stock, North Coast old stock from 2004. Now you may, if you've been watching the videos, I did a whole series of old stocks not too long ago. So this is a beer, and we all should be familiar with. If I remember, it's not too carbonated. I think they're not, even when fresh, they're not all that carbonated. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one since we've covered it before. It's the taste is just malt up the wazoo. In the nose, I get malt and a little bit maybe of an ester. It's very subtle, and I might be imagining it. But it's a nice beer. Though if you remember the video, I thought that the 2010 was actually the sweet spot. I believe this was the oldest one I did on the video. I do have some 2001 and 2002, but I was doing 3-year jumps. So I'm going to pair that with a beer that at the time I thought was somewhat similar. Not similar in taste, but similar sort of in concept, is a Thomas Hardy Ale. And this one is also from 2004. And for those of you tracking the bottles, this is bottle number P55215. They number the bottles. And get the foil cap off first, and they have this nice little medallion, which I've used to tell the beers apart. Now that had a little bit more of a hiss, so we'll see what happens here with the Hardy 2004. Now that looks to be a little bit more carbonated. It definitely is more carbonated. And there's also lots of malt, but it's less sweet. The old stock is malty but sweet, and this just is malt. I mean, malt is sweet, but that the old stock was a little bit more of a sugary sweetness. And the Hardy is also less sweet in the flavor. Compared to the old stocks, almost is a little bit too sweet. I'm going to take a quick break here. I think I have some technical difficulties, and I want to get some pictures. So we'll be back in a minute, and we'll discuss them a little bit more detail. So see you in a minute. Okay, I'm back with my 2004 beers. I have a 2004 old stock from North Coast, and I have a 2004 Thomas Hardy's Ale. So I guess I should read the bottle. Take a sip first. So little note in the trumpet major, Hardy wrote, is the most beautiful color that the eye of an artist in beer could desire. Full in body, yet brisk as a volcano. Yada, yada, yada. Brewed and bottled by O'Hanlons Brewing Company, Wimple, Devon, England. So this is after, which I think in '99, that it was stopped being brewed at the Eldridge Pope Brewery, and O'Hanlons picked up the name. The North Coast, old stock, we covered that label the other day. There's not much on it, just the year, North Coast Brewing, limited edition. So 11.4%, and the Thomas Hardy is 11.7%, so they're very similar. Now, back in my homebrewing days, there was I had a book that was from the UK, and it may have even been put out by Camera, the Campaign for Real Ale. I don't remember that, but they had homebrew recipes of popular British beers, and there was a Hardy's recipe in there, and I did brew it. In fact, somewhere I still have one bottle left, and this would have been, I think I brewed it in '94 and we bottled it in '95, and so it's been 26 years somewhere in my house. But the thing I remember is it had a lot of hops in it. I mean, you don't get any hops in the really in the taste. I mean, you don't get any noticeable bitterness like you do in an IPA or a dry pilsner. But obviously they're there because the beer tastes much less sweet. And I would assume that with the same alcohol range, they probably had the same starting gravity. And so the final gravity is probably fairly close to, I mean, not exact, and the Hardy tastes much less sweet. It's much more, in a sense, balanced. The old stock I like, but I say the sweetness is, I think will build up. And the Hardy is in a small bottle. It's 8.5 ounces, a nip bottle, and I wish I actually had more of that. I used to have some Thomas Hardy in 12-ounce bottles. That's another story. So I'm not sure what to say. I think I've told all the stories from these breweries in the past. I do remember, I want to say 2013. It may have been 2013, 2014, and I don't know. I should have done my research on this. The Hardy's name has gone through a couple of different breweries. And always in the early days, like when I bought these, they really weren't much that enjoyable the first year. You really had to age them for a number of years before they were, before I really enjoyed. I mean, they weren't bad beers, but they were a little on the sweet side and a little harsh. And with time, they've mellowed out. And I remember, I want to say it's 2013. Believe it was, I was at the Great British Beer Festival, and there was a bar that was just opening, a very small place called The Rake, and they were advertising for their opening party, or their soft opening party. They were having cask Thomas Hardy, and I'd never had never had it on draft or cask or whatever. It was strictly a bottled beer, and so we managed, turns out it was a private party, but we talked our way in, a traveling companion and I, and managed to get a glass of it, and it was good. I mean, very much enjoyed it. But I noticed when I bought some bottles that year or soon after, was they did not need to be aged anymore. I mean, they were they were sort of drinkable from the start, and I think that was a decision. I mean, you can't sell. It's hard to sell a cask or certainly a cask beer, even a keg beer. Oh yeah, you got to put this, until the bar. You can't serve this for a few years, and especially when a cask beer, you couldn't do that probably anyway. So I think the recipe was modified, and I haven't tasted any. I mean, that was 2013, so any of those beers are 8 years old or so, and I've not tasted any that long. That from that time period that old. So I'm curious whether they age as well as these. And I've had some, and again, it's probably 10 years ago. The first year they brewed it was 1968, and there was a guy who brought a bottle to share with a small number of people. So I mean, I didn't get a big, but I got a fair slug of it, and it was still a very enjoyable beer. It was in a quart bottle with a cork on it, which is kind of unusual. The other story, and it's not so much to do with Thomas Hardy or Old Stock. I have numerous beer friends from Sweden, some from Stockholm and other parts of Sweden, but a bunch from Stockholm. And for years they were trying, to get me to come visit because they have a, world-class pub there called Akkurat. And it was sort of an ongoing joke, and it happened here. We'd say, "Oh, we're going to so and so. They're going to have cask Thomas Hardy," and they go, "Oh, we had that last month at Akkurat." And it was like you pick some unusual beer, and it was like, "Oh yeah, we had that on draft at Akkurat," And I just said as a joke, "Have you heard about this beer? It's only brewed by nuns. It's brewed by nuns only on days with a full moon." And I was like, "Oh yeah, we had that last month at Akkurat." And I finally did make it to Stockholm and to Akkurat, and it was an amazing beer selection. Very much an amazing pub. They had a good selection of Swedish beers. They had an awesome selection of Belgian, especially lambics. In fact, they have a lambic that Cantillon makes for them, the Midnight Sun, Soleil du Minute, as well as lots of other lambics. They're a cask mark pub, which is the British cask certification. So they have cask beers, on a beer engine that meet the standards of the cask mark accreditation. And they also have a lot of German beers. I mean, you can find yourself with, especially beers from the area around Bamberg, a lot of Franconian beers. In addition, they have a restaurant that makes good, basic but inexpensive, relatively inexpensive food. They bake their own bread as well. So they excel on many levels. So well worth a visit should you find yourself in Stockholm. Just make sure you get an extension on your credit line. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a sec, and then I'm going to open up the second batch of head-to-heads, which you can guess are going to be a North Coast and a Thomas Hardy. So hang in there. We'll be right back. I'm back with my head-to-head, and this time we're going to try an Old Stock 2007. Again, this is a beer I had in the Old Stock tasting the other few weeks ago, and that's kind of why it was handy. So I grabbed it, and it happened to match what I have on Thomas Hardy. And if I remember from a few weeks ago, really the 2007 and the 2004 tasted quite similar. Now this has a little more carbonation, and still got that sweet sweet aroma and some sweetness in the beer. I mean, it's almost a molasses. Not quite, but I mean, it's not a like a candy sugar sweetness. But it's still a very nice beer. And then, of course, we have the Hardy. For those of you keeping track, this is bottle number P20487, again from 2007. I assume they start the bottle numbers over every year. And again, brewed and bottled by O'Hanlons Brewing, Wimple, Devon, England. And not much of a hiss. And it's actually less carbonated than the 2004. That's quite interesting. There's the 4 even after a few. That's the 4. You can see even after sitting for a while, it's still got some head. And the 2007 is not totally flat, but pretty flat. So this is interesting. One of my viewers mentioned that I use the word oxidation too much. He says, well, of course it's oxidized, they're old beers. And he's also a firm believer oxidation's not a bad thing in beer if it's done well, but it goes right. This I do get a little bit of oxidation in the nose where I didn't on the 2004. It's not a bad amount, but that might also explain a little bit the little bit of the lack of carbonation if the seal wasn't quite as good in 2007 as 2004. Well, that's interesting because there is the Hardys. There's a noticeable difference. With the old stocks, I mean they all look the same. Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to tell which. I mean, there are differences, minor differences, but the two old stocks are very, very similar. Whereas the Thomas Hardy, there's a bit of a difference, and the older one actually I think is better. Yeah, I mean, it's still good though. There's going to be no watering of the plants today. At least not by these beers. I mean, I may water them with water. They do like that. Now it's interesting. After I did the old stock video, I got a reply from on Twitter from North Coast Brewing and said, "Hey, you might be interested in this video." We did a tasting with our brewmasters and the beer designer for the 20th anniversary old stock. We did 20 years. Now it's a 20-minute video, and I actually haven't watched it yet because I don't want to prejudice what I say. But it's like 20 beers in 20 minutes. They obviously didn't talk much, or they edited a lot out. I have trouble keeping these videos down. I always say every video, I say, oh, it's going to be a short one. And then I struggle to get it down to in the under 35 minutes. So, but I have this one might be a short one. Because there's only 4 beers and they're very similar. So now, this actually was a hard combination to do because most of my Thomas Hardys are from 2000 and earlier, And of course, old stock wasn't brewed till 2000, I think, or 2001. Um, and it's like I don't have every year of old stock, and the years I don't have old stock, I have Hardy. So, and vice versa. So I thought I actually had a 2002 and a 2007 today, and I turns out I don't have any 2002 Thomas Hardy. I thought I did, but um, I have 2004 and 2005, and lots of 2000, 99, 96, 98, and so I'll probably do a Thomas Hardy vertical at some point in time. Well, enough talking. Back to the beer. I'm going to take them in, I guess, reverse order. Start with the old stock 2007, the one I just opened. And the nose is, it's fairly, I'm going to say, bland's not the right word. There's not a whole lot there. There's some sweetness. And it's not carbonated. One of the things when CO2 is released from the beer, it carries up aromas, and so beers that are carbonated, the aromas are easier to detect. Say I get sweetness, kind of almost a brown sugar sweetness, maybe molasses, tending towards molasses. And just a little bit of ester from the yeast. On the 2007 Hardy, the nose I get a little bit of sherry, and actually a little bit of it smells almost like a burnt malt, which surprises me. It shouldn't be there. That may be just things reacting, and I get maltiness. I'm fogging up the glass as I breathe into it. And it's good. There's just a little something there that's not as I get a little bit of it, almost burntness in the flavor, and that just doesn't. It's not objectionable. I still will finish the beer, but it's not as good as it could be. And then that takes me to the 2004 Hardy. And this is my favorite of the batch. I'm just getting lots of maltiness, but it's not sweet, so there's enough bitterness in there, even though it's not apparent. It's enough there to balance the sweetness. So it's the most balanced of the four. Now, balance is a relative term. It's still very much on the sweet side. Well, I'm going to take a pause here for a minute and get some pictures, and then come back and ramble on about something else. So we'll see you in a minute. Okay, I'm back with my head-to-heads with the Thomas Hardy 2004. Grab the right bottle. Not that the bottle makes that much of a difference, but you can see it. And this is still my favorite of the beers. It's not too sweet. It's kind of in that Goldilocks spot. And then we have the old stock from 2004, which is my favorite of the two old stocks. As it's warmed up a little bit, I'm starting to get a little bit of sherry notes to it. And I hope that background noise isn't got some construction going on. So I've had a My pause was not that you would notice, but my pause was longer because it was really loud for a while. I'm enjoying the, I like the 2004 Old Stock. It's maybe hard to say second on my list. And then I have the 2007 Thomas Hardy. And I think this is a bottle. There was a little bit of an issue with the bottle. It didn't have as much carbonation as the 2004. And it's slightly more oxidized. It's the cherry notes are more noticeable, but it's not bad. It's not unobjectionable at all. It definitely will finish it. And then we have the Old Stock 2007. Which is very much like the 2004. I said the 2004 Old Stock was my second favorite. It would be, hard time picking between the two because they're very similar. So when I was tasting the Old Stock vintages a few weeks ago, I had in my mind, and I may have said it, I have trouble remembering what I say when I've been drinking beer, that these beers reminded me of Thomas Hardy, and I should drink some side by side, which is where I got the idea for today's show. They're not as close as I had thought. When you drink things not together, sometimes it's hard to make those comparisons. The Old Stocks are way sweeter than the Thomas Hardy, and that was the surprise to me. The Thomas Hardy is a little bit sweet, and the Old Stocks are very sweet. But they're all good beers in good shape, and I will finish them. And as I think I said, I have another head-to-head kind of in my mind. It's not as fair. These are sort of, even though they taste quite a bit different, they're similar designs, I guess you would say. They're both tend very much towards the malty side as opposed to the hoppy side. And I have a bigger variety of Bigfoots, of big feet, than I have Old Stock, and some of the older ones track pretty well with the Thomas Hardy. So I may do a Bigfoot Thomas Hardy, which isn't quite as fair because they're sort of different concepts for the beer. And I also have some 96 Old Foghorn and a bunch of 96 Thomas Hardy. And so I'll probably do those as well. That'll be interesting because it'll be the other way. The Foghorn's in a nip bottle, and the Thomas Hardy will be in a 12-ounce bottle. So anyway, I'm not sure. This may end up being a short one. To me, it's been very educational, and that's I hope it is for you as well. It's not quite fair. The glass that is the most full is the Old Stock from 2007. But the Old Stock has half again as much beer-wise to start with. And the one that's I've had the most of is the Hardy 2004, which still is my favorite. And I say the Old Stocks compare well. I mean, they're not, I don't mean to comments to be in any way that they're not good. They're very good, and they've held up well, and they compare well to the Hardys. More than any other beer I can think of that I've had aged that well. I mean, I have some Victory barley wine from 2000 and 2002, but those are more like the more like the Bigfoot. The old Victory Old Horizontal is more like the Bigfoot. Um, it's a it was a fairly hoppy beer to start with, as I remember, but I may be wrong. So I'll drag one of those out at some point. And well, I think I'm going to leave you here. I'm starting to ramble more than usual. Um, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, hit the like. And if you haven't, hit the subscribe. I'm up to 35 subscribers, and that's like, whoa. That's that's almost the big time. Only 965 more to go. If I can hit 40, I never thought I would have had 40 subscribers. So anyway, as always, stay well, stay healthy, and good beers to you.